Hello again, everybody. This is Fred Kranz from St. Ange, here with another episode of Taking the Supply Chain Pulse. Today, our guest is Mike Schiller, Executive Director of AHRMM, the Association of Healthcare Resources and Materials Management. Thanks for being here today, Mike. We're happy to have you as a guest. And what we'd like to do today is learn a little bit about you and have you tell us a lot about AHRMM.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here, Fred. Thanks for the opportunity to join you this morning and glad to get into it here. Let me know
Okay,
where you'd
now
like to start.
I'm going to ask you the question that I asked a few minutes ago before we came online, and that is, how do you think the Cubs are going to do this year?
Well, I've got a lot of hope for the Cubs this year, but you know what? I think that's just part of our DNA as Cub fans. We are eternally optimistic about our club.
Yep. You should be. Cubs have a rich tradition. So and the North Side team is the team of the city, really, I think, as compared to the Sox. But anyway, tell us a little bit about yourself, where your career started and how you ended up where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, be happy to. So I've been in the field here, in the career field, the supply chain, for 37 years, Fred. I started out at a pharmaceutical distribution center in Mount Prospect, Illinois, called Letterly Laboratories. And I worked there for about 9 years, started in the warehouse, moved into the office and managing the inventory there at that distribution center. From there, I moved to Baxter and their interwoven division. This was back when AMSCO came out with their reusable surgical gowns and towels. And so Baxter created a similar division. And I went in and I ran the field inventory and the whole premise of the business, right, is you're making money on these reusable products because they're coming back to you. And we were losing a significant amount of product in the field. So I was really identifying the processes in the hospitals and turning the program around so that we were getting the inventory back. After Baxter, I went and worked at Lurie Children's Memorial Hospital back then. I was there 17 years. I started in the OR. Ran the OR and surgical services inventory. SPD reported to me. I moved on to the IT department, implemented Lawson, became the system administrator for Lawson, and then moved into the supply chain and leading the supply chain for the organization. Last 3 years of my career, I stepped out of operations and I joined the new hospital team, the new hospital project team. And we built a new, beautiful Lurie Children's Hospital there on the Northwestern campus, right next to Women's Prentice. Was a project of a lifetime, Fred. I'll tell you, it was one of those projects that you look back, you just hang your hat on. They had put together just a great team. 3 years, project came in on time, under budget, and just a phenomenal facility. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to take a look at it. It's just gorgeous. From there, I went and worked for a company called Open Markets for about a year, and then after that, I joined AHRMM. And I've been here at the AHA and AHRMM for 10 years and just recently am honored to have been selected and named the Executive Director of AHRMM. And I'm really excited at the opportunity that this presents.
That's a great title. And I know that you probably have hundreds of people on your staff working at AHRMM. Is that correct?
Hundreds minus about 100. We've got 6 people now. We've got a couple of open positions left to fill. I'm working on those right now, but I'll tell you what, I'm so proud of our team here. I'm blessed to have the folks here on the team that I have. They are just great. Ideas that they're bringing forward, the passion that they have for AHRMM, for our profession and the supply chain professionals that we serve. I couldn't ask to be working alongside better colleagues than the ones I have.
That's great. I actually knew the answer to that question when I said that.
We're small but mighty, Fred.
There you go. So what is the role or the mission and vision of AHRMM?
That's a great question. So we've got our mission vision statements on the AHRMM website, but you know, Fred, since taking on this role of executive director, I'm flying a new banner, if you will, over the headquarters here of AHRMM, and it's transformational excellence. Which is in my mind, operational excellence is I'm doing the same things I've done before. I'm just doing them better. Transformational excellence to me speaks to the need to change. right? We have to do things differently. And let's face it, over the last 4 years coming out of the pandemic, supply chain leaders, we are working very differently than we have in the past. And the skill sets that we have to have today are very different than the skill sets that we really needed 5 years ago. So to that end, I drafted a couple of principle statements, and I worked with a lot of colleagues who have helped give me some feedback on these. I worked with the team here to give some input into it, and really, it comes down to AHRMM's dedication to supporting healthcare supply chain professionals as they build and sustain agile and intelligent supply networks that support not only their organization, Fred, but supports the communities in the healthcare field at large. And you notice I used supply networks as opposed to a supply chain. Supply chain to me conveys a linear type of supply chain. A network speaks to a network, right? It's expansive. There's multiple nodes in this network, multiple connections in the network. And then the other principal statement is really about our commitment to be at the forefront of teaching and knowledge creation that prepares and equips supply chain professionals. And that's really, I think, the focus of our Reimagining AHRMM initiative here is really developing and producing and delivering content that is going to help move the supply chain field forward, again, under this banner of transformational excellence. And last but not least, the conference we have coming up here in Columbus, Ohio. The image or the icon or the logo that we selected was the bridge. And I just love that logo because it really speaks to, I mean, what does a bridge do? A bridge connects. And it's building off of last year's Supply Chain Week theme of the power of partnership and making those connections that only supply chain professionals can make. We're uniquely positioned, right? All the internal relationships that we have, as well as the external relationships that we manage, and we can bring connections together that others may not see. And these connections and these relationships can produce benefits that otherwise would not have been realized.
Very good. The one idea of the network, I have had Ed Hiscock from Trinity on this podcast before, and I asked him the question: is the healthcare supply chain a real supply chain? And he said, no, it's a web. And I think a web is very similar to a network. I think that you're both right about that. It's interesting that you would say that. So if I'm a new person that just came out of college and decided for some unknown reason I wanted to get involved in healthcare, which is not a career where you're going to become overwhelmingly wealthy, why would I want to join AHRMM?
Well, let me just take a half step back and joining and moving into the healthcare supply chain. People who are doing that, you're right. You're probably not going to be on the Forbes, most wealthiest list anytime soon. But they're doing it because there's a passion there, right? You're a part of something bigger than just yourself, right? You're part of that patient care. You're bringing the supplies to the hands that give care. I think Vance Moore is the one who coined that statement. I don't know that I'm stating it accurately, but so it's much bigger than yourself, and I think that's what really appeals to those of us who are in the supply chain field. But why AHRMM? AHRMM is the Association for Supply Chain Professionals. Right? We've got the content, and I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. Right, we haven't done a lot the last couple of years. It's been a challenging time for us, as it has for many other organizations. Coming out of COVID, getting back on our feet, and kind of getting our stride back. Right, but we've got a full staff, well, almost full staff. We've got a new education team in place that has an instructional design background, and we're starting to develop a lot of content. We're starting to create a content calendar. We're looking at adding additional e-learning curriculum. We're looking at, additional webinars and other content. We just wrapped up our very, very successful Spring Summit, which was a 3-day forum with 2 sessions each day, addressing some of the key challenges that supply chain professionals are facing: workforce, revenue management, financial management, cost management in this very challenging financial environment that we're working and living within. And then last but not least, technology. And what does AI look like, right? That's what we hear. AI, you're hearing it everywhere. And how does that apply to the supply chain and our supply chain operations? So why ARM? Because we're right there. Our goal, as I mentioned in those principle statements, is to come alongside you and help you on your learning journey, help you on your career journey, give you the tools that you need to be the best supply chain professional that you can be to help guide and be a part of steering the organization where it needs to go in this post-pandemic environment. Again, a very different environment than what we're accustomed to working in. And let's face it, inflation, we haven't seen inflation like this, Fred, since you and I were just a couple of young pups out there, right? So this is very new to some people in their roles. This is the first time they've seen inflationary pressures like this.
Interesting. So use your imagination here, Mike. Imagine that I'm a young guy, just 23 years old, just came out of college. That's where you have to use your imagination. And I have joined AHRMM. Why should I become an active participant?
Well, again, I think it's number one part of being a part of something that's bigger than just yourself. Everybody has an expertise base that they operate from, and bringing that skill, those talents, those abilities to ARM in the various committees that we have to offer, providing guidance as we look to develop content that is meaningful for the supply chain community. We could sit here and guess and have ideas. Yes, I've been a supply chain professional 37 years. I have the opportunity to travel quite a bit and network with a lot of different stakeholders and business verticals. And I come up with ideas on what our education should be. But the best way is to get it from the voice of our members, right? And so to that end, part of the Reimagining ARM initiative were one-on-one conversations with supply chain leaders, a voice of the member survey that we had sent out, and bringing all of this feedback to the consulting group that then presented a roadmap for us. And so this roadmap has identified a number of key strategies that we're working on, and I'm working very closely with our advisory board on. And so, again, why be a part of it? It's a part of it's being a part of something bigger than yourself, but it's also coming into ARM when we're reimagining what ARM should be for today's supply chain professional and giving us the opportunity to hear from you so that as we develop the content and the information and the education and the different opportunities that you need to advance in your career and to be the best that you can be, hearing that from you allows us to better fine tune the content that we are developing to meet those needs.
Well, last year when I attended the annual conference, I attended a couple of sessions with the young professionals group. I think Rachel Anderson is the leader of that group. And I thought that, wow, I wish I'd have had something like that when I was a young guy that just went into supply chain, where you have all these really talented, gifted young folks that have a forum to talk and to exchange ideas and experiences with each other. Could you tell us a little bit about that group?
Yeah, we're really excited. This group has really taken off. And I mean, let's face it, tenured, I like to call us tenured professionals instead of old guys, tenured professionals like ourselves. Right. Next 5, 10 years, a lot of us will be retiring and exiting the field. So it's really important that we foster and come alongside these young professionals. I think there's something that we can learn. They bring a very different skill set. They're much more connected and tech savvy. They've grown up with technology. And so there's things that we can learn from them. And obviously, I think there's things that they can learn from us. So there's the opportunity there with our YPAC, our Young Professionals Advisory Council, and the programming and the content that they're developing that meets those needs of the young professionals. And I'm really excited to share that we have added a special appointee role to our board. So the YPAC past chair, when they complete that past chair role, the following year, they're going to be a part of the National National Advisory Board for ARM. So this year we have approved the special appointee role, and Ryan Burke will be filling that. it's important, right, to have that strong connection between the YPAC and then a representative from the YPAC to sit on the national board. And it just speaks to our commitment to young professionals and, again, developing the content that these young professionals need in today's supply chain world.
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm a member of the Bellwether League, and Ryan Burke and Rachel Anderson are both future famers. So I think that
Hmm.
they are, if they are representative of the future leaders, we got a lot of good stuff going for us. And when I attended that session last year, it was interesting because there were a lot of young folks in there talking from their perspective about their career, about employment, about whatever. And there were a lot of uh, seasoned people or tenured people, as you will call them. I call them old guys like me that were that were smart enough to go to that meeting as that session as well. And I would have to say that I learned at least as much from that meeting as any of those young folks did. It is a really good forum to try to learn how other people think and how other people see the world, because at any given time in any organization, you are probably dealing with at least four generations and maybe five. And every one of those generations looks at the world and their immediate environment differently. So I really want to compliment you and commend you folks for those sessions. They were really great.
Yeah,
And
thank you for that. Yeah, actually, Fred, that was probably one of our highest attended sessions. I sat in on that session, and I think we had over 150 people in that one session. So I think it speaks to exactly what you're talking about, right? It met a need. There was a lot of interest and a lot of representation from, to your point, those 4 or 5 generations. Which, if you just put yourself in our shoes, this is why it's so important, going back to my voice of the member survey or voice of the member information. How do we develop content for 4 or 5 generations out there, right?
right,
So we need to understand what each of these generations are looking for, and then try and develop content that meets those needs. And not only the content, Fred, but the modalities that everybody likes to digest or interact or interface with that educational content. So, not a challenge that we're not up for, and something that we're definitely striving for and continuing to hopefully meet the needs of those generations in the places where they reside, in those social media and other realms where they reside, work, and operate.
and there's another thing that you did in the last couple years, and that is you have gotten input and presentations from the military. And the reason I find that to be so meaningful is that I will say this, and I can say it with absolute certainty over 50 years of being in the supply chain. Many of us old time supply chain leaders didn't know a damn thing about supply chain. We knew nothing about logistics and transportation because we outsourced those functions to our distributors. We knew a little bit more about purchasing and contracting, but most of our commodity items were outsourced to our GPOs. The military really understands logistics, really understands transportation. They have their stuff together. And a couple years ago, I met Alfred K. Flowers Jr., the general from the Air Force, in one of his presentations. And I've never been so impressed in my life as how much those guys know and how much we have to learn. And so I appreciate you bringing those guys around. Are you going to continue doing that?
Absolutely. That is one of our growth strategies here, is really a deeper engagement with the military than we already have. And I'll be honest with you, it really starts with the military representative on our advisory board. We've had some outstanding representatives over the last couple of years that have really helped us in reaching out to that community, to those professionals in the military, and recognizing, to your point, the skill sets that they possess. They're just amazing. And so providing that track for those individuals, but more importantly, or equally importantly, I would say, is the skill bridge program now that the military has. And that's a program that helps retiring military professionals segue into the private sector, and provides the opportunity for them to move into jobs in the healthcare and logistics settings, because again, they've got such tremendous expertise. So this is a phenomenal program, and this is a program that AHRMM and AHA have gotten behind, and we're putting together a website and a resource page to help share that information. But I'm thrilled with the relationship that we have and the direction it's going, and we're looking to add a couple of additional sessions to the military track this year to again to build that out and to provide some content to more of the upper levels of the military, right? Not just the operational professionals, but some of the higher level leaders in the military. So we're excited to be able to do that.
Yeah, I really thought it was great. I never been. I'm impressed with very few people, but I was really impressed with Alfred K. Flowers. He was just a really nice person. But when you look at the background of a senior military person, you'll see that we one of our shortcomings in healthcare is we don't have career paths identified for us. And I started to research Mr. Flowers, and every step along the way in the military, they put you in different environments for periods of time so that you learn something. Then you move to another area where you learn something, and by the time you make it to the senior levels, you have experienced pretty much everything you're going to need to know to do a hell of a job. We often learn by happenstance, and that's something that we could learn from them is to create career paths and our operations for our people so that they can become excellent at what they do too. So, what have you guys been doing to grow new membership?
Well, we are again coming out of the Reimagining Arm initiative. We've got a number of priorities in that area: membership and education, the military track, the young professionals. These are all key strategy points for this year. We want to expand in creating and developing some strategies and collaboration at the college and university level. Uh, Developing a stronger alignment with our chapters as well is another key strategy. So all of these ultimately benefit the members that we have and the content we're able to procure and deliver, but also helps us to reach out to these communities and to grow our membership. And to that end, Emily Milkes is our newest membership specialist. She just joined the team, I want to say 3 weeks ago. And Emily brings a really strong membership professional background to this position. She's got 6 years of experience in managing another healthcare surgical association that had a little over 6,000 members. So she brings that wealth of experience here to ARM. And we're really excited to have her as a part of this team. And she's just jumped in and starting to take control of some of our committees and leading those committees. And again, the work that comes from these committee members helps to inform our strategies and membership growth.
Well, that's great.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Fred.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the big things we're looking at is understanding the financial environment that we are all operating within. One of our key strategies is to go to where our members are. We're going to have the annual conference. As I mentioned, it's in Columbus this year, September 22nd to the 25th, I want to say. Yeah, the 22nd is Sunday to the 25th Wednesday. But I think it's equally important that we go to where our members are. And so that's another strategy, all right? And being able to do that hopefully exposes us to individuals who are not yet our members, but they can see the content that we have and the value that we bring to today's supply chain professional. So a multi-pronged approach to go to where our members are, since some of them can't come to where we are at our annual conference.
I would say probably most of them can't come to your annual conference.
Yeah.
I'd like to get back to the conference as we start to wind up the interview here. But before I do that, tell us what your opinion is of the new crop of supply chain leaders. What do they look like? How optimistic are you for our future?
Well, I'm very optimistic. You mentioned Rachel and Ryan, and I know that there's a number of other young professional leaders that are a part of our YPAC and others that are not part of our YPAC, but out there. And it gives me a lot of hope. And I think that they bring a skill set that we had to acquire, if you think about it, Fred, right? We grew up without technology and then needed to learn how to incorporate that into our lives, our professional lives, our personal lives, and this group has grown up with it, right? It's just a part of who they are, and I think that that alone will help them to bring a different perspective, a different approach to how we address the supply chain network that we're in, because again, it is a network, and the tools that are coming out and becoming available in this space, I think they have a lot of potential, but you can't just throw technology on top of an operational process. You need to understand that operational process. And I think that these young professionals, as they come in and learn the nuances of the operational processes and then bring that expertise and skill that they have through their education and the technology experience that they have, I think that's just a solid 1, 2, 3 punch that will really bring a lot of benefits and move the supply chain forward in ways that we haven't seen.
Yeah, well, that's great. I work with Rachel and Ryan on a regular basis, and they blow me away at their work ethic, at their focus, and at just about every aspect of what it takes to be successful. So let's talk about the annual conference. I have been going to AHRMM conferences year after year after year. And among my biggest beefs about the AHRMM conferences have always been that they're held in big venues in cities that are sometimes difficult and costly to get to, but have great tourist attractions. So everybody wants to go there because that may be the only trip they get out of town all year. And I know that when you guys picked Columbus this year, I'm sure you've probably gotten a mixed amount of feedback, but I think it was an absolutely brilliant choice for you to pick Columbus. It's a it's a market and the size of a market that many of the members, more of the members work in than work in the large, gigantic markets. It's a great place for people to experience what life is like in America, and it's in the middle of the country, so you can get there relatively easily. So, tell us about this year's event and who you've got speaking, and what has been the response to the picking Columbus.
You're right. The response has been mixed, but I like Columbus for the very reasons that you mentioned, Fred. Back in, I think it was 2015, we held our conference in Indianapolis and received a similar response, a mixed response, right? Indianapolis. But I'll tell you, once the conference ended, the feedback was this was great. Easy to get to, easy to get around, nice clean city, all of the benefits, etc. People loved it. And if you think of Columbus and you think of its location to some of the major population areas there in the Northeast, it's not too big a stretch that we can be pulling from all of those major population centers. I think, in the years past, a lot of the contract negotiations and site locations, those are all determined a few years in advance. And, we had a couple of conferences on the coast. We had Anaheim in 22, we had Orlando in 23. And again, in this current post-pandemic environment that we operate within, the West Coast conference, to your point, nice vacation destination after the conference, but we lost a lot of the East Coast, right? Same thing with Orlando. We lost a lot of the Mountain States West. And so the strategy here is let's kind of move in and then create kind of a square within the central portion of the U.S. East, West, North, and South, and try and identify some of those markets that make sense, that again provide easy access into and out of, access or proximity to some of these larger population areas, but also provide that nice experience that our members are looking for once the conference ends or prior to the conference. Come out and spend a couple of days and see the sights, sounds, and events that each of these cities has to offer. So that's been our strategy, and we're really excited that the opportunity Columbus presents. In fact, the other day there was an article that came out in Forbes that just talked about Columbus being a fast-growing city and just the benefits that Columbus provides that were highlighted in this article. So a timely piece that we can definitely use to share why you should come to Columbus. In addition to the content and the networking that the AHRMM conference is going to offer, here's some of the other amenities that you can enjoy while you're in Columbus.
Yeah, it's a great place. I was asked by the Central Ohio AHRMM group to do advertisement for Columbus. And for me, that's pretty hard because number one, I live in Cleveland, and we think that Cleveland is the best place in the world. And number two, I graduated from the University of Miami, and we got screwed by Ohio State in 2002 by a terrible call at the end of the national championship game. But I did it, and I did it because I think Columbus deserves to be recognized. And I always thought that if you took the Mississippi River and went 100 miles on either side of it, that would be the most convenient thing for most people in the country to attend meetings. That's just my opinion. So my hat's off to you. So my final question is, what did I miss? What didn't I ask you about that you'd like to go on the soapbox for a minute or two?
I think we covered everything in really good detail. I would just say that, one of the things we're looking to do with these new locations that we're selecting for the conferences is to really engage with the chapter or chapters in that area. And so to that effect, the Ohio chapter we're working very closely with them. And there's some pretty cool things that we're going to have up and coming. I don't want to tip my hat. We're going to have some announcements coming out here on some of the ideas that are coming out of our discussions with the Ohio chapter, but definitely some unique opportunities that this presents, and definitely a model that we're looking forward to expanding upon as we identify those other cities for conference years 25, 26, and beyond. So I really, again, and it's part of the strategy of how do we align more closely and integrate more closely with our chapters. We've got 29 chapters, and they're a great asset to AHRMM. And so how do we work more closely with them? And this is just an example of how we're going to do that.
Well, great job. And Mike, it has been a real pleasure having you on the podcast, and we hope to perhaps have you on again some other time. If there's any folks out there that you think that we should be talking to, send me an email, let me know, and I'll be happy to contact them, because we want to get the word out to all those people that don't get to travel, that don't get to hear the folks that are the leaders in the supply chain industry. We're sort of trying to expand their horizons through this podcast. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much. And everybody else, we'll see you next time when we take the pulse of the supply chain. Take care.